Well, hello, grievers. Mandy here. Restorative grief is all about creating easy access to healing, no matter where or who you are. That's why I want you to remember that if you want grief support beyond a podcast, our Patreon features monthly workbooks to accompany each episode, as well as a Discord channel for more private chats and occasional bonus content as well. Supporting this work with your finances means investing in your own wellness and the healing of others, and that in itself is an incredibly generous and restorative practice. The link to the Patreon is in the show notes, but reach out with questions, okay? Now, let's get on to this week's episode. Welcome back to Restorative Grief with Mandy Capehart. You are listening to episode 147, titled Authenticity in Everyday Life with Roger Butts. Showing up for yourself in grief work takes courage and curiosity. Today's guest is Chaplain Roger Butts, who wants you to explore the essence of living authentically in everyday life. In our conversation today, Roger shares his experiences as an activist, a Unitarian Universalist minister, and a hospice chaplain, discussing how a mindfulness practice and our genuine presence can transform our interactions and support others in their grief. So join me as we delve into practical insights and spiritual wisdom for embracing authenticity and compassion in all aspects of life, even as we grieve. Hey everyone, welcome back to Restorative Grief with Mandy Capehart. I'm your host, Mandy, and today my guest is Roger Butts. Roger is an ordained Unitarian Universalist minister serving as a hospice chaplain in Fort Collins, as well as an activist against the death penalty and the author of Seeds of Devotion, How to Make Sense of Everyday Life with Mindfulness and Good Questions. So Roger, thank you. Thank you for joining me today on Restorative Grief. I'm so excited to talk with you.
It's really nice to be with you, and thank you for your hospitality.
Absolutely. I want to get started just momentarily since you are a minister and just clarify that we know the religious makeup of our listeners is vast. So, as we get into the conversation, if you are one of those people that just heard me say he's a minister and a hospice chaplain and thought, no, thank you, pause before you turn off the episode because this is an invitation into considering how mindfulness and good questions and awareness can actually help us find and create meaning in our life experiences, including grief, right? So, with that, Roger, why don't you just give me a little bit of your philosophy and your work that you do?
Oh, sure. I've been ordained as a Unitarian Universalist minister for more than 20 years now. Went to seminary in DC, have served congregations in Iowa and Colorado. And I have spent a lot of that time as a hospital chaplain and a hospice chaplain. So to just piggyback on what you've already said, the first rule is to meet people right where they are. And the first rule is to do no harm. And the first rule is to just be as authentically yourself as possible so that others are invited to be as authentically possible as themselves as possible. And so I've had congregants who were atheists or more influenced by Buddhism or more influenced by Taoism, more influenced by Christianity, humanism, so on. So the idea is that there is underneath all of those labels a common humanity. And one of the things for sure that we will encounter is loss and grief. And there's no reason to couch our differences, couch our common humanity with our differences first. We should focus on those things that unite us and that we'll all experience together. And so the way I do that, the way that I really try to see in each person dignity and worth and really be present with them is to imagine, as Emmanuel Levinas, the French philosopher, did, that anytime you see the face of another, you're seeing God, you're seeing the holy, you're seeing the sacred, you're seeing a revelation of the divine. That for me helps me to pause, to be fully present, and to be really curious. I see chaplaincy as a combination of courageousness, courage and curiosity. If you can have courage to enter into the life experience of another person and be really curious and open-hearted about what that person is communicating, you'll find a connection.
Mm. It's such a beautiful way to show up in relationship, regardless of whether or not you are in a casual conversation with someone or in a situation where you are the chaplain in their hospital room. But I'm curious, what drew you into chaplaincy from ministering?
Well, I've always had sort of a big heart, that sounds pretentious or arrogant, but I've just been more compassionate. Some people are more engineer-like or
Sure.
math-like, and I just loved relationship and heart-oriented stuff. So I grew up in a very religious family, conservative Christian family, Baptist. But one of the things that I took away from that, I didn't stay that after college, but what I took away from that was a real sense that we're in it together and that we are here to help one another. And that's been nice. And so when I went off to DC to live after college in the mountains of North Carolina, I went out to DC and worked on Capitol Hill. But even when I was working on Capitol Hill, I was hanging out with like the Catholic worker, and they were like teaching me how to do peaceful protest and all of these things. So I always had this interest in religion, spirituality, helping, and the common good. And so I went to seminary in DC, and while I was finishing up seminary in DC, I had an opportunity to work at the University of Maryland Medical Center in Baltimore City as a hospital chaplain. And so on Tuesdays and Fridays, for a year and a half, I was there. One of those Tuesdays was 9/11, and that was really intense. But I just have always been drawn to chaplaincy. And after after 2013, I basically have focused on hospital and hospice chaplaincy, to be with people in difficult times and to be a calm, reassuring presence, to be vulnerable in that, to be open in that is a real gift. You're invited into people's worlds in different ways when you're a hospice chaplain or a hospital chaplain. And if you can keep the focus on them and their needs and try not to get in the way, then you'll do good ministry in the world.
I think that last bit you said was really important. I talk often with people about centering when they're showing up as a grief supporter and not centering themselves. And also speaking with grievers to address when someone says, well, you need to stop crying or it's going to be okay, that those statements are actually about the grief supporter and not the griever or what they need. So
Right.
that statement about being able to be with them and their needs and staying out of the way is so important. How would you encourage someone who has a griever, has a family member who's like, oh, I'm here to support you. Here's what you need to do. Stop crying, pick yourself up. Like, what would you say to those people from your position and your experience about what's helpful? Because I imagine you see that in hospital rooms from family members as well.
Yeah, and it's important for the one who is grieving to be able to set the agenda, to set boundaries, to set limits, and to say what she needs in that moment, what he needs in that moment. Um, and if someone says it's going to be okay, or suck it up, or stop crying, or it could be worse. That's one of the bad ones. It could be worse, like, oh, not helpful. Um, and you're the one grieving. I guess what you do is just recognize that it is about them and not about you, and try to redirect the conversation, I suppose. Um, I don't really know. I don't know. I haven't been on that side of it, in a way. Um, but to just say, I hear you, I appreciate you, I thank you. And I'm in my process, and I'm going to go through my process.
Yeah.
The one grieving knows it's going to be okay somewhere in there, but in that moment, it's not particularly helpful to say that. And that one grieving knows that they're going to stop crying eventually, but to be to be told not to worry or not to cry isn't helpful in that moment. Job, the book of Job and the Hebrew Bible and the Hebrew scriptures sort of covers this, right? I mean, the friends of Job who's had a bad, bad streak of luck, at first they got it just right. They kept their mouths shut and they just sat down and said nothing and just sat with them and were like, "What's up, Job? Hey, have a prune, and then they make a tactical error and start talking. It's like, damn it, why did they have to start talking?
Yeah.
Just keep your mouth shut. Get more prunes. If you have to do something, get some water, get some more prunes, get a glass of wine for them, whatever, but don't talk. Um, so
Yeah. It's funny how that allegory just turns us into ourselves, right? It gives us the opportunity to say, like, did you grow impatient with someone who wasn't healing on your time frame? Maybe
exactly,
maybe
exactly,
you also said the wrong thing and harmed them further when your intention was the opposite. It's kind
exactly.
of incredible how we do that. We slip into that sense of our own lives and our own understanding without realizing what we've done until it's too late. I'm curious, actually, same thing. How did your work as a chaplain and as a minister like shift your understanding and grief and loss over the years?
Oh, I mean, that's such a good question. It's actually in my activism
Hmm.
when I really first learned how important it is to know who you are and what you're doing and why you're doing it in the midst of your activity. So when I first became a minister, I wanted to work on poverty. I wanted to work on LGBTQ issues and marriage equality. I wanted to work on democracy. I wanted to work on this and that, racial justice. And I could feel myself as a new young minister really getting fried because I was chasing after all of this stuff. And why was I chasing after all this stuff? I hadn't yet come to grips and come to terms with what I was doing and why I was doing it. Locating myself and my story and my narrative in my desire for beloved community and for radical equality and belonging and acceptance, um, and fairness. I hadn't done the work yet of knowing what in my own story is causing me to try to fix all these things, right? And be like this white savior in this situation, this white male savior. And once I was encouraged to slow down and do the work and figure out what is motivating this, then I began to really prioritize what was important to me and where I could make a difference given my gifts. And that's how I really started to focus on abolishing the death penalty.
Hmm.
But two, I began to settle in my own spirit and recognize that there were other people doing other work that was their work to do and not mine. So the point of my book is to help you take your own life experiences and recognize what that is doing around your motivations and your fuel and your desires and your passions, so that you can begin to let those passions fuel you, but not become a blinding kind of unintentional um, motivator in your life.
Yeah.
I was going after all this stuff because I needed to be busy. I needed to walk away from some things that were bothering me. I needed to distract myself. Monkey mind was taking over. And so then I began to realize, oh, there's a more intentional path. There's a more mindful path. There's a more purposeful path. And I had to do the internal work to come to that place. So it is with helping others who are grieving, helping others who are experiencing loss, who are walking towards their own death, whatever it is. If we can begin to understand how we are connected to that other person through our life experience and our own loss, and let that connect us, then we'll enter into relationship in a way that honors the other person and their otherness, their alterity, and in our common humanity.
That deserves a Selah moment because it's interesting to hear you describe the negative motivations that had you working toward the outcome that weren't so intentional and personal. Because I think about people who are trying to work as grief supporters or even grief experts in a lot of ways, grief coaches who have an unspoken motivation of fear or control or power or influence, and it has never been reckoned with. And it comes out in their work, whether someone can articulate, hey, you're trying to control me, or your addiction to certainty is impacting your ability to help me. It doesn't matter if someone can't name it. For the person to be able to sit back and say, I see this in me, now what, is a
Yeah,
really powerful moment. Hmm.
I think that's right. And the more intentional we all are about who we are and what we bring to the table. Now, the what I don't want to suggest in all of this is that we be robotic or flat. Like we're not AI, right? We're not just a computer programming going into that room. We do bring our own life experiences. We bring our own quirkiness. We bring our own life experience, and those things are important as a humanizing kind of mechanism. So it's not like we're trying to get rid of all that life experience, but what we're trying to do is transform those losses, that fear, so that it will it will help us connect with the other person as opposed to get into control, anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever.
Okay. Speaking of helping us with that other person, that interpersonal relationship, I'm thinking a lot about the way that modern politics have really impacted a lot of our interpersonal relationships and created such a state of grief, whether it's what's happening globally or happening in our own nation. Those interpersonal relationships and ability to understand each other are deeply at risk, if not shattered right now for so many people, which is a whole nother event and situation for us to be grieving and dealing with. So I'm curious, through the framework of your book and just the encouragement in it, how would you bring someone into a state of mindfulness and encourage them to look at some good questions to bring attunement and connection back to those relationships without judgment, without condemnation, without accusation, but going into that positive motivation of honoring their humanity, seeing their dignity, pulling them back in close without rejecting something that they identify with.
Exactly. So I think Byron Stevenson, who founded Equal Justice Institute down in Birmingham or Mobile or Selma, one of those towns, says that for democracy to work, we need proximity. Proximity, right? It's hard to hate somebody else if you're proximate to them, if you're next to them, eating a salad together. And so I would say the same thing about this particularly polarizing time right now,
Mm,
is that if we can stay close to others and try to put away our projection, put away our agenda, put away some of those things, and just stay connected to them, um, then we'll have a chance to find some common ground.
mm,
I mean, I go visit people all the time who have flags out that indicate to me that they're not on the same side politically as I am. Hey, it's my work to be with them and to stay with them and to walk with them. So proximity is really important, number one. And number two, a Christian term, I mean, like, I don't know what, probably pre-Christian term, but this idea of kenosis,
mm,
emptying out, emptying out. It's a very Buddhist idea too. If I assume just because somebody has a particular flag out front that indicates that maybe they don't believe the election results of 2020 or something, like whatever it is, like something that I'm not going to be like naturally attracted to,
mhm,
um, then if I go in there assuming that I know their story, assuming I know what they're like, assuming all of these things, then I've already filled up all the space that they can occupy by telling me their story. And I have to rinse that shit out somehow, right? Because I don't know their story. It's like if I walk into the room of somebody who says they're Christian, I don't know what kind of Christian they are. Like, I can't tell them what kind of Christian they are. They have to unfold that for me. I have to stay curious. And so, um, that idea of kenosis, emptying out all of your assumptions, all of your projections, all of your concerns, all of your worries, now while still being, alert to dangerous situations, but start with the benefit of the doubt. Start with common humanity and empty out all of those assumptions that get built up and ask and talk and be present. And you might find some common humanity.
mm,
It's imperative. It's imperative in our situation right now that we get back to the idea that in a democracy, there are no enemies. There are people with different visions. There are even opponents, but there are no enemies. And we have to get back to that.
mm. I heard something the other day. A person I respect and adore said something along the lines of, it's time to stop believing people are doing their best. People are often doing the worst possible harm and work they can be doing intentionally to damage you. And it struck me as something worth considering. I am the person that says believe the best, plan for the worst, like hedge your bets, trust the goodness overall of humanity, but lean toward safety if necessary. But I'm just curious how you might draw someone in.
as a white dude who's straight and a
Yeah.
monster, old, come on, like I'm about as safe as a person can be. But and I would never tell someone in a marginalized community to, assume the best of somebody if that's not safe for them.
Yeah.
Um, but somehow we do have to get to a place where we have opponents but not enemies, because democracy depends on that.
Right. Well, and I think that that's what I'm wondering. What kind of questions would you say to the person who is clearly not in a place of relational safety, or who knows there are people who do not want my best outcome, that want their power, and they know their motivation is control, and they're fine with it, and that's the intention. What kind of questions and mindfulness practices could that person use to create safety for themselves and still choose to lean towards someone and create an opportunity for growth for themselves?
Yeah, I mean, I think the important thing is to trust your gut if it doesn't feel safe, but B, I think establishing limits and boundaries on what you're willing to how far in to this potential relationship you're willing to go,
Mm,
before you have to say nope, that's the end of that. I mean, James Baldwin sort of covered this, like yeah, you have a right to your free thoughts, but if they involve my being eradicated, it's the end of the story, right?
yeah,
But my trans friends, it's not safe for them right now.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's a different
It's a
conversation.
whole different conversation. It just
I
it
don't know that I
popped in
have
my
any
mind.
particular insight into.
That's okay. Well, let's go for a second into your book,
Yeah.
Seeds of Devotion. It's an invitation into a deeper conversation with ourselves. What what do you see as mindfulness, and what kind of practices would you encourage someone to look at their everyday life through the lens of?
Yeah. So first, thank you. It's called Seeds of Devotion. It's around wherever you buy books, but it can be ordered. But what I've what I've come to see is that we all have these experiences. Like every life is a sacred text, as far as I'm concerned. But we all have these experiences, but we don't ask the right questions about those experiences to gain insight more often than not. Um, and so the first thing is, asking yourself the questions. What is this experience trying to teach me? How am I being invited to deepen, to grow, to develop? How is this inviting me into greater compassion, greater love? Just asking these questions. And then, whatever your practice, and it could be bike riding, it could be like my wife, who's a minister too, she's deep into hot yoga, like whatever it is. I'm into centering prayer, which is like almost like a Buddhist meditation approach to Christian life. Um, there are different ways of doing it. Some people are into the rosary or other beads, but whatever it is that gets you to calm down, quiet that monkey mind, and empty yourself out so that you can be filled with that which is eternal, which is light, which is love. Um, do that. So if you can ask the right questions and get into a mindful, prayerful posture, then those experiences can be integrated and used to help you deepen.
Yeah. I think one of the interesting parts about grief work too, with regards to that practice, I talk often about similar practices with my clients too, is the trauma informed piece of that, knowing we have backgrounds where maybe our prayer practices or even religious practices are a part of the grief story that we're encountering. And that does not mean that we
Right.
have to exclude mindfulness or curiosity or even exclude an idea of what an infilling of light might seem like or feel like to us.
I mean, for me, one of the first times that I had this infilling of light, this transcendent moment, and it's in the book, and I can't remember what it's called, but there's a little essay in there. I was going out to my friend's house, driving my little car, and it was so long ago that on the CD player was the Indigo Girls. and, and the sky was so blue and the sun was so there. And I was in this moment on I-95 going south on Virginia, in Northern Virginia, that something in that moment was transcendent and filled me with light. I didn't even believe in God at that point. So it could be the Indigo Girls, just tap into something deep inside of you, and there you go. Sometimes it's not in somebody's best practice or best position to be quiet in that way as well. That could be triggering. So, you know, find your path, find your practice, secular, religious, spiritual, whatever it is. But the goal is to keep that heart space open,
Hmm.
so that what life brings at you, you know deep in your bones that you are held in light and love to such an extent that there is nothing that life can bring at you that will ultimately defeat you.
Hmm.
That's my take on it. Can I leave you with a blessing from my book
Yes, I would love that.
and your readers? I really enjoyed being with you today.
Oh, thanks, Roger. This has been really wonderful. We'd love to hear a piece from your work.
And you got to think, like, those people that loved the Buddha and were taught by him, like the idea of his death must have been so overwhelming and so difficult. And for him in those last moments to be like, now it's your turn, make yourself into light, you know?
Hmm.
It had to be disorienting, but also so hopeful. And the story is that, like, when he died, like, all the trees nearby, like, blossomed. It's like perfect. Of course, that's what happened.
Yeah.
Right? So here's what I wrote after writing about the Buddha's death. This is the prayer that follows. May life surprise you today. May a sense of grace come out of nowhere in the middle of your daily tasks. May a sense of peace find you in the unlikeliest of places. May a sense of courage and renewal find you. And may God's love surround you. And may a gentleness, a returning quietness, and a restoring stillness be with you now and always. A restorative wholeness is yours to claim and embrace. And may faith, hope, and love be your constant companions. God bless your day. Amen.
Thank you for sharing that. I love that line about the restorative wholeness. Obviously, it's one of my favorite words.
Yes, I thought
Yeah. Roger, thank you for being here. If you're interested in learning more about his work or you want to find his book, check out the show notes for a link to purchase your own copy. And of course, make sure you subscribe to the show. Roger, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for listening to episode 147 of Restorative Grief. As I wrap up this conversation, I am reminded of how profoundly my own life has been impacted by the authenticity of others. Roger's powerful statement, seeing the face of others is like seeing God, encourages us to approach each interaction with presence and reverence. And I know that in my own life as a griever, there was never a more meaningful moment than when I felt truly seen, loved, and heard by another person as when they were fully with me and fully present. Your presence is a gift, both for you to share with others and to explore for yourself. In grief work, I know it can feel safer to slip away from the moment or even to abandon our grief work entirely. So I hope the conversation today is the invitation you need to hear to return to yourself and to the attention that you so deserve. If this is your first time joining us for the show, thank you for making this moment part of your grief and healing journey. Please remember to subscribe, leave a review, and check out the show notes for a link to Roger's book. There's also a link to the Patreon for bonus content, early episode access, and a weekly workbook to help you apply these conversations in your own life. And before we go, as always, one last thing. Please remember, the only solution for grief is to do the work of grieving. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next week.